All right, can everybody hear me okay? I think we'll go ahead and get started. I know people might trickle in, but so first of all, welcome everybody. It's great to see everybody in person. This is the Benson Management First Friday Lecture Series, and we've not had one of these since, well, I guess it would be February of 2020, so it's been a year and a half since we've had one, but we're delighted to have one in person, and I'll be introducing our speaker, Jennifer Hansen, in a couple minutes. But let me first thank our sponsors. So, as I mentioned, Benson Management is a sponsor of this series. They're a family-owned business with 40 years of experience operating and managing a variety of rental real estate housing for students in the area around TC, UWL, and Viterbo. So we very much appreciate their sponsorship of this event. The other sponsor that we have, normally we would have, if it wasn't COVID times, we would have a networking event afterwards, which we would all be drinking and sort of chatting with the speaker and each other, getting to know each other a little bit better. We're not going to have that this evening, but normally that would be sponsored by Grande Cheese. So instead, they sent cheese cutters. How many people got their cheese cutters? Things are awesome. Yeah, good. What's that? I'm sorry, not cheese cutters. It's a pizza cutter. Yeah, thank you. You know, I'm a little challenged up here. This is, when you aren't in the classroom for 2 years, this is what happens. You get rusty with these sorts of things. So. But that's okay. You'll forgive me in a second here when I announce the other thing that Grande Cheese wanted to do. Since they're not able to sponsor the networking event, they're delighted to be able to provide something else. So how many of you swiped in, the students swiped in when you got here? Okay. So for those of you that swiped in, what we're going to do is we're going to take all of the people that swiped in and we're going to run a drawing for a $1,000 scholarship today. So, thank you. So, besides the pizza cutters, there's also a chance to win a $1,000 scholarship. So I'll do that this weekend, and I'll email the lucky winner on Monday, and then I'll make you come in and take a photo. But we really are appreciative of Grande Cheese's support. Let me share with you a little bit about their company as well. So they're located in southeastern Wisconsin. They're the premier manufacturer of Italian cheeses since the company began in 1941. Grande Cheese's famous line is, finest Italian cheeses money can buy. I think one of the other things that's really important to sort of point out is Grande Cheese has been a proud partner with UWL, employing several alumni, including the Chief Executive Officer, Todd Crosse. Grande is also a robust presence at UWL through the annual career fair, supporting student scholarships, besides the one I just announced, and sponsoring this speaker series and the networking event. So they also welcome students as part of their summer internship program, and you can certainly learn more by visiting grande.com. So thank you to them for their support. Now, I want to turn to our speaker, who I'm going to welcome, Jennifer Hansen. She's got I've looked at her slides ahead of time. She's got a great bio to share, so I don't want to steal her thunder too much, but I do want to sort of point out a few things about her successful career. First of all, she was the president and owner of the Anderson Group, which was a privately held family business that consisted of Anderson Seal and Anderson Packaging. In September of 2016, she sold the business to a foreign company, Trelleborg Sealing Solutions, and really sort of saw them then through the next couple of years, and I know she's going to talk about that a bunch today, and we'll ask her questions about it as well. So Jennifer has her undergrad degree from UWL as well. It's in psychology and Spanish, I believe, but we've adopted her in the College of Business. She has an executive MBA from Milwaukee, and she has over 25 years of distribution service industry experience working in the OEM area in powertrain, medical, water, automotive, hydraulic, and small engines. The Small Business Times also awarded the Anderson Group the Top 10 Business of the Year Award in 2009 and 2013, and they've been awarded the Harley-Davidson Supplier of the Year Award. And they also were named the Large Business of the Year for the New Berlin Chamber of Commerce. And then personally, Jennifer and her husband live in Mequon with their teenage son, Nate, who took a campus tour. And so the responsibility for every student in here is to make sure that you sell Nate on the place, get him to come here in a couple years when he graduates. Jennifer and her family enjoy spending time together, playing golf and traveling. So with that, I'd welcome Jennifer Hansen to the front and look forward to, let me just get your slides up.
All right, well, thanks for having me today. I think that the thing between you and happy hour and your weekend is me, right? So I will make this quick and hopefully worth your while and have some questions for me at the end. So I'm going to give you like a 28-year bio in less than 15 minutes. So if I start talking too fast, just raise your hand. But this was me, graduation in 1993. Like Dr. Brooks was saying, a BS in psychology and a Spanish minor. So here's going to be my quick journey on where I kind of am to how I got to where I am today. So my first plan of action was to take the money I got from my graduation party and go to Europe and backpack with my roommate from college. So I think we hit about 12 different cities, 7 different countries in about 6 weeks, $50 a day, backpacking around Europe, eating, drinking our way, meeting people from all over the world, having a great time. Got home, had to live and move in with my parents because I had no money, and my plan was to get my master's in social work in the fall. So I got my first job in the field, which was as a drug and alcohol counselor, and that was my plan. And then I moved out about 6-7 months later when I made enough money waitressing at nights, counseling during the day, and that was my first goal. And then my dad, he started a company called Anderson Seal back in 1990. He sent me a letter to my apartment requesting my presence for an interview for his company. Very strange. So I went, and literally he gave me a survey from a Golf Digest magazine asking me to fill it out. And he came back after tabulating the results and said, "I knew you should be in sales. I want you to come work for me." I said, "I don't think so, Dad. What do you do?" And he sells rubber products. So seals, O-rings, gaskets. Kind of not really what I wanted to do with my life, but I wasn't going to start school till the fall. So I said I would do it for a year till I went back to school. I also contacted some marriage and family therapists in the area, gave them a survey. I can talk a little bit more about that later because that's what I wanted to do and got their input as well. So Anderson Seal, industrial rubber products. We did not supply the O-ring that made the shuttle blow up, FYI. But O-rings, rubber gaskets, fittings, types of seals for original equipment manufacturers in all types of industries. Automotive, off-highway, water, medical. So whether an O-ring is in your faucet or it's in your car, they're everywhere. And they basically do not prevent leaks from happening in a system. So I started working for my dad in 1994, small company, 10 employees, 10,000 square feet, and really just kind of did a little bit of everything, inside sales, outside sales. My dad did not have a computer. I don't think he has one today. He might still have a flip phone. But so I got our company the first computer system. We got ISO certified, International Standardization Organization for Quality Control, and just did a little bit of everything through those years. A few years later, I applied to get my executive MBA at UWM, met my husband there, so I got a degree and a husband. It wasn't the plan. And really learned a lot, going back to school, taking real business, applying it to the schoolwork, and then taking the schoolwork and applying it back into business right when I was able to that following Monday, which was great. So what we started to do when I graduated, we had been washing Harley-Davidson's returnable containers. What? Yeah. So basically, Harley was bringing all their products that they would source from their suppliers in cardboard boxes. And they were trying to look at a way of reducing their footprint, getting sustainable. So that we would say, well, we're going to take returnable containers that you bring your products in. We're going to wash them and then route them out to your suppliers and then have those suppliers put them back in containers, and then we would swap them out. It started maybe 10 containers a day. It turned into 60,000 a month. And when I graduated from my grad school, I was like, Dad, we moved into this 30,000 square foot building, and here we're washing containers in swimming pools, like washing them in one, rinsing them in another. I'm like, this is a whole different business. So started a separate company called ARM, Anderson Resource Management, which did the returnable container business. So we started doing that in 1990 up until almost a 20-year business. So that was one separate company. Then after we got about 90% of the seal business for the target customers that we were looking at, we said, what else can we do for our main customers, Harley being a big one? So we looked at their aftermarket need. So we supply all the O-rings on the bikes. So hopefully when Harleys used to be known for, when you look under the bike, they would always be leaking. Well, they shouldn't be anymore because we changed the materials that they were using as well as all the other sealing components on the bike. But then what we said was, what about your aftermarket? So what we did was we started with the sealing kits and said, why don't we put those together for your dealers in the U.S.? So if you would go to a dealer anywhere in the country, they have kits that are made by us that are used to put together oil changes or anything else that you need to service your existing bike. We call that business P&A. Stands for Parts and Accessories. So we kind of launched that probably about 1998. We started calling it P&A, doing the P&A business in our existing location. It grew tremendously. It was still growing when about 2003, my dad was probably golfing on a daily basis, not really involved in the business at all, and said he wanted out. He wanted me to buy him out, and I was fine with that. And so he had it professionally evaluated. He hired somebody from Chicago, had it evaluated, and I bought the company from him at full price back in 2003. It was a busy year. Got married that year. Later that year, I got pregnant, moved into our first home. So it was a busy time. Meanwhile, the P&A business was expanding. We were able to double our business. So that ARM business, I originally had in a 15,000 square foot building, and then I moved the P&A business into the front end of that building, 15,000 square feet, and I bought the building. So I called that building Hansen Habitat. Last name's Hansen. Habitat is a place where seals dwell. So I thought that was kind of cute. And then that building had the half ARM, half kitting, and then we had a 30,000 square foot building that did the distribution of the seals. So we were going along great. Then 2008, the recession hit. Harley wanted us to reduce our price for the ARM business for the returnable container cleaning. And it was a service business. So what they were paying for was a service fee for overhead, material, labor. None of that had gone down since 1990. So we had a mutual agreement that we weren't going to do it anymore. They found somebody else that did it. We trained them, got that off and running. And then I had 15,000 square feet that I could expand my P&A business, which I did that following year. Then we were all comfortable. 2 buildings, one for P&A, one for original equipment manufacturing and distribution for seals. And then in 2010, Harley approached us and asked if we would quote what was called CKD. It stands for Complete Knockdown. So what we would do is we would buy the entire motorcycle in pieces, bring it inside, and then ship it in containers that look like that. And it started in Brazil. And we would ship it to emerging countries where they would take those different playpens and all the components inside the playpen and build the motorcycle using all those parts for those emerging countries. So it started in Brazil. It ended up quadrupling in size and expanding over the next 10 years. But that's called CKD. So that was under the packaging division. So now, 2015, my attorney said if I can run these companies separately, independently, financially for 7 or 8 years, it'd be easier to legally divide them. So I waited the 7 or 8 years, and then legally I formed a holding company, the Anderson Group, Inc., and housed the 2 companies, Anderson Seal, LLC, which is my middle one here, which is the distribution company, and then Anderson Packaging, which is the P&A division, 30,000 square feet, and then the CKD division, which ended up being 45,000 square feet for the building of the motorcycles. We had up to about 75 employees by now. We had, 75,000 square feet, and things were pretty hectic, growing quickly, and that was pretty much probably at the height of the peak of sales while CKD was continuing to grow. So overall business functions, I had built overseas relationships with partners in Asia because it was very important at this time to make sure Anderson Seal had partners in China for all of their products. So we were sourcing direct from China. And then any legal disputes, HR issues, hiring. And then I was very active in the community, which I feel at this point you need to be. So I was on boards like Milwaukee School of Engineering, Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, Waukesha County Business Alliance, Muscular Dystrophy Black and Blue Ball. So very active in the community as well as growing the businesses and giving back to the community. Also with the main focus being on continuity and succession. You always have to keep an eye on where you want to take these businesses. Things don't just happen. You have to kind of get ready for them to happen, and you have to be ready if things do happen so you can maximize potential. This is a little bit about the culture of the company. So I liked the marketing ploy of we will treat you right all year round. So every Halloween we would dress up to our customers. I would buy about $1,200 worth of candy and hand it out to my customers. We'd load up in vans, and we would have a different theme every year, and we'd hand out candy. I mean, these are senior corporate people like fighting over Snickers, seriously. But, it was something that they looked forward to, and it's something that we did annually for about 25 years. We also had a lot of incentives if you worked for me. I gave you your birthday off with pay. I never liked people that said, oh, it's your birthday, you have to bring in a cake. I'm like, so you have to cook on your birthday? That doesn't work. So I'm like, you should take the day off with pay. Every quarter, I would give you a day of vacation if you made no quality mistakes. We had Survivor Island, which is, I think I had a crush on Jeff Probst at the time. I think I still do. But basically, we would start, everybody would be on the island, and if you didn't make a quality mistake all year, your name stayed on the island, and then at the end of the year, you'd get money and days of vacation. So lots of incentives. If you submitted an idea, I would give you $20. We would have quarterly lunches, all-employee meetings, and we gave a lot back to the community. So I think, Dr. Brooks mentioned some of this. This is just some of the things. I did get my WBE certification, which is Women Business Enterprise, by the National Council of Chicago. So I have been a WBE certified business since 2004, top 10 in 2005. I was featured in Forbes in 2009, Harley Supplier 11, Small Business 13. Husco was also one of my large customers where we serviced all their automotive needs in 2013, New Berlin Large in 2015, and then I was on a show with William Shatner that he hosted called Moving America Forward that I was out in LA for in 2015. And then this broker contacted me from Sweden and asked if I'd be interested in selling Anderson Seal. And they came over, we had some initial talks. I went through the whole due diligence, letter of intent, and I decided this was going to be a good fit for me. So we finalized the agreement 1 year later, and I sold to Trelleborg Anderson Seal in 9/6 of 16. And part of my contract was that I would be retained as the general manager for 3 years. So that was what I was doing from 16 to 19. Why Trelleborg? Well, they're a $3-4 billion company. They had many manufacturing facilities all over the world. They had resources that I could only dream of. But Anderson Seal had 20 employees. So I went from 20 employees to 20,000 employees and working for a very large publicly traded company after being a very small privately held company my whole life. So this was a difference. But it was a good one for the company. It benefited my customers and their global footprint. This was our open house that we had. As part of my contract, I was able to find, build, and furnish our new 55,000 square foot facility for my employees that Trelleborg paid for. Now that's fun too. Spending someone else's money was much, much funner. That's not a word, but it was. And it was also their first Global Plus service center in the country. So what they did is they shadowed and modeled the way that we do service, which is value added to our customers in the States. And then since they've opened up 4 more in the country. So they're using it as a way to do real value add, just in time. How can we be extension of customers locally with global footprints to the market? So my last day with Trelleborg was 9/6 of 19. It was 25 years that I'd been with the company. My goal was to be retired by 50. So I was 49, so I was happy. Meanwhile, CKD was taking a mind of its own because I still own Anderson Packaging. So Anderson Seal is done, but I still own Anderson Packaging, and we quadrupled our sales with CKD. So now we were not only just building these motorcycles for Brazil, but we were doing it for India and Thailand as well. So it grew substantially. And then in 2020, just last year, Harley said that they wanted me to reduce my price again. And again, my prices and my costs were not going down. So I said, this is not a win-win anymore, so it's probably not something we're going to continue to agree on. So I closed down CKD, and Harley insourced that business, and that's what they're doing inside today. Basically, because of tariffs, you don't want to bring bikes into countries because of the cost. Now, if you've been doing any reading on tariffs with the EU, the laws have changed dramatically, which has made a big difference, especially for companies like Harley. So we'll see how this impacts them in the future, which will be a good thing for them. So now I'm kind of have some time on my hands because I have a full executive team that works for me for packaging. So I still own the company, and I still go to executive management meetings, but I probably only go in maybe 3 times a year. So I went from being really busy to really not being busy. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that you still want to stay busy and you want to stay doing something that you love. So I started a consulting company called Just Jennifer Consulting because it was always my goal to not have a boss and not have anyone work for me. So this was a way that I could work with other business owners on strategy, on continuity, on succession, and that's really been a lot of fun. So kind of reflecting back, which is putting the slideshow together because I had to go find some really old pictures. It was kind of a fun project for me. And I kind of say GB, GB. So the first 25 years, I'm going to say, are growth. You're literally physically growing. You're mentally learning. You're figuring out what you want to do. The next 25 years for me were build years. Personally and professionally, building my family, building my career. And then the last years, which is now my 50-plus years, I think are going to be focused on GB years, give back years. So whether they're coaching, consulting, mentoring. I coached 5th grade volleyball. I was very happy. We were undefeated. Look how adorable they are. And speaking, which is what I'm here to do today. So I'm looking at other ways you can start to give back, because I think that's what really, at the end, what we're supposed to be doing with our extra time. And that's all I got. That was hopefully 15 minutes, 28 years.
Good. That was good. So I have a bunch of questions, and I would start asking those. But I also want to offer you the opportunity as well. I get to have dinner with Jennifer later tonight, so I'm going to ask her these questions at some point. I'll ask them in front of you guys, or if anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll give this to Gwen or Jeff to walk around if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'll start. So, you say, I want to see what this Golf Digest survey looked like that your dad gave you, by the way.
Me too. I should look at that again.
So, you come out with a psychology degree and you don't think sales at all, and your dad convinces you to come for sales. At what point did you decide, what made you decide to stay, that you were good at it? How did that sort of conversation go? How did he keep you there?
I think I wanted to stay because I liked doing a lot of different things. I learned about myself that I don't like doing the same thing every day. I like having a lot of different challenges. So I liked the business aspect because I could do sales, I could do marketing, I could do HR, I could do IT, I could do, I really did all parts of the business. And that for me was fun. And I did this little survey where I called like 10 marriage and family therapists. Yeah. So I said, I had, called them. I think it was we still had yellow pages at the time. You look up marriage, family therapist. And I said, do you have a minute? I just want to ask you a few questions. And so I asked them all the same time questions. How much money do you make? If you were me, would you do that today, and why? And I found that at that time, divorce rate was really high, and a lot of people were getting counseling because they had to, because of divorce. And it wasn't as fulfilling as some of people had originally went into the field for. And I just, financially, I was looking for something that I was looking to also increase a little bit. So, and with the business growing so much, and with me having the opportunity to really have a lot of flexibility in what I did, and my dad letting me learn from my mistakes and just do a lot of different things, it was a lot of fun. He basically threw me in the water, without a life jacket, and said, good luck.
So the first thing I want to say is, I think it's a great advice on, if there's a profession you want to go into, just randomly calling up some people and asking them, because I think people probably took your call, right, and they answered your questions. Yeah. This part about then your dad throwing you in the deep end and making you swim, what was that like? Was it fun, exciting? Was it difficult? Was it challenging? Were you mad?
Was all of that. Working with family is a whole separate situation. My uncle was there, my mom was there, my sister was there, another in-law was there. It was crazy. And working with the ones you love is a whole nother thing. But no, he really let me learn and learn the hard way, but I think that's how you really learn quickly, by making mistakes, learning from your mistakes, and being able to take something on that you may not be ready for, but you can learn from it, and you just kind of do it.
So can you, over dinner we're going to talk about family businesses, because my father also had a business that I went to work for a year, and that's why I went to graduate school, was because I couldn't handle that situation. And I realized that maybe I should have stuck around. I think the thing I want to know sort of is that early on, though, what would you say your biggest challenge was that you had to overcome in those early years?
I think in the early years, I didn't have any experience. I wasn't an engineer, and I didn't have a business degree. And I'm working with all engineers and with buyers of pretty large companies. So having a real technical understanding of my product was really, really important. So whether it was the Parker Hannifin handbook, I studied from cover to cover. So I knew my seals. I knew my different types of elastomers. I knew all dynamic and static applications. I knew my pressures. I knew what seal you should use in what application. So I really made sure that I was an expert in that specialty because it was needed.
But you were a psychology major, right?
Well,
So like
right. But
how did your
how many of you
education
guys
prepare
think
you
you're
for
going to
that?
ever work with people? Does anyone think they're going to work with people? I mean, if you're going to work with people, psychology kind of comes in handy, you know? I mean, in my opinion, working with people, motivating people, figuring out how to engage people, that's all psychology, especially in sales. You know, trying to understand what somebody wants and how you can facilitate a win-win situation. I mean, psychology helped me big time.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting, like, I like to tease, our provost is a psychologist, which is why I said that. But what I find fascinating about that is, like, you know, the technical side of things is not something easy to pick up. But I feel like, you know, your education gave you the skills to figure it out. You needed to know that, and you had the skills then to learn that.
100%,
Which is something, again, students should hear, that just because they weren't trained in a particular area doesn't mean they don't have the skills to acquire that information that they need to in that area and do a good job.
Yeah, because any class you take now you didn't know about before you took the class. It's no different. You just have to figure out what you don't know and study it and know how to study it and retain it and utilize it and apply it.
You know, some of your photos demonstrate sort of that you were traveling the world, you were doing international business. So what do you think are some of the key important skills students should have, things that they should learn if they're going to do that in their careers at some point? What did you find helpful?
Well, we were a domestic, most of our partners back in the 90s and early 2000s were domestic manufacturers of seals, and it wasn't until I bought the company that I started partnering with Asian suppliers so we could purchase the parts from China direct, because it was a 30% cost reduction. And if I can give that to my customers, that was a huge competitive advantage, as well as being able to do all the engineering and show that it was the same quality source. So going to China, finding sources, building partnerships was a huge education and very, very important. And without doing that, we wouldn't have remained competitive. Distribution business is cutthroat. It's all about margin. We're not making it. So we're buying it and selling it. So we have to make sure that we're getting it at the most competitive cost and we're able to mark it up as much as possible, because otherwise it just comes out of your own margin.
Got it. How would you say you're, you know, like, so a lot of students are thinking about what to do after school, and, you know, I'm sure that that's sort of the classic to travel Europe. What do you think you learned on that trip that you took with you in your career?
It was the best thing ever. I don't think there were many other times looking back in my career where I could have taken that much time off. You know, like I didn't have a job yet. I mean, when else are you going to say I'm going to go take 7-8 weeks off? It's just not going to happen. So I had the money, you know, it wasn't that much money, you know, to save to do it. So I think it was very important just to be able to see different cultures, experience. I mean, I was a Spanish minor, so spending a great amount of time in Spain and speaking Spanish. I mean, was really, I never did it abroad or anything like that. So having that experience was really cool for me.
Yeah, if students here, if they had a chance to study abroad, is that something that you recommend that they do?
Yeah, we just had the tour today, when Nate and I went on it, and they were saying it's the same price as if you were in class here. You can do it in another country. If that's something that you're interested in, I don't know why you wouldn't take advantage of that. It just opens you up to, I think, so many other things, and it makes you appreciate things in the same.
Excellent. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the, you know, this is the problem. Oh, we've got one down here. I can see that even though I haven't been in the classroom in 2 years, some things don't change, and that is that students don't want to ask questions. I should have saved that raffle for only students that ask questions.
I don't know if you told them that. No.
So it's loud.
Go ahead.
So I know you talked a little bit about it, but you transitioned from that private company to the public company. What was like the biggest struggle transitioning to public, and then what was something that became easier when you did that?
I was never on so many Teams meetings in my life. I mean, we never had these Teams meetings, and it was literally every hour of every day there was a meeting. And I was like, when do these people ever get anything done? I mean, all you're doing is going to meetings. That took some getting used to. I was also traveling. They had me traveling probably, you know, at least maybe 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. You know what I mean? Which was a big difference for me, going to lots of different sites, both domestically and globally. And that was also difficult just from the standpoint because I was still running my business at home. So it was hard to kind of, from a time management standpoint, do everything that I could do. They had what was called 100 and 100. So I had to do 100 things in 100 days post-acquisition. I had to change the name. We had to change the website. I had to get rid of all the signage. We had to change all the benefits. I mean, every day was another huge thing to do. So it was just a lot. It was a lot. the benefit is that if I needed help with engineering, if I needed to buy a piece of equipment, if I needed anything, there were so many people I could call and get help right away. And I never had that before. And that was really cool. And it was the first time in 25 years where I had colleagues. I had people that were GMs of other businesses throughout the world, and we would get together at annual global meetings, and we could have lessons learned and shared interests. And that for me was really cool. I made a lot of really good friends.
Go ahead and down here.
So I guess one of the things that I've always been curious about, so obviously you can go to school, you can study management, but I think one of the things that really make a manager are some of the traits you have. I know you talked about, reading the handbook, making sure that you are as literate as you can possibly be. I mean, so obviously going in your dad's company and, starting from, I'm assuming, the bottom,
Yeah.
and moving up to the point where you're acquiring his company and, essentially in charge of every single function. And then even a few laters down the road, you're in charge of 20,000 people. So I guess other than that, I would be curious, what other traits, I guess, did you find yourself developing that I guess allowed you to be so successful as you grew as a person and obviously a manager of people?
I think stamina. You got to keep getting back up, and it was very stressful. And I also had to really prioritize my work. I was probably 10 maid of honors, while I was in the middle of running and building a business, and I wasn't the one to date or get married or anything. I was in school and I was working. So I really I sacrificed a personal life for a while to focus on the business, and that was my life, So I think sacrifice, and I think stamina, and I think just having enough confidence in yourself to say, you know what, I don't know this, but I know I can figure it out, And I think that what you tell yourself is so true.
Thank you.
So building off the previous question, throughout your long career, what would you say kept you motivated and kept pushing you to become successful?
I wanted to retire by the time I was 50. I was motivated by money, and I'm motivated by completing goals. So for me, it's about goals. I really believe in goals. I'm sure you guys heard about the SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound. I really think you need goals, and I think that for me, I would be motivated by achieving. That was motivating for me, and I knew that if I worked hard, even though it would be tough, I could have a different life earlier that I wanted. So that was what it was for me.
So you went back to school after working for a little bit. What was that? What led you to that decision?
And I lied on the transcript. I mean, it said I needed 8 years managerial experience, and then I had to go through foundations. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I mean, and now I'm in an accounting class, and I'm crying, and in an econ class. And I mean, these weren't even classes I took in undergrad, so now I'm taking them at the master's level. But when my dad said, back in 98, you're the only woman in this industry. You're selling rubber products. You don't even have a degree in business. You better get some credibility. Mm-hmm. So it was his idea to have me get my EMBA. He goes, it's credibility that you need, and whether it was credibility, but for me, it made such a big difference because that degree, it was an executive program. So you went on the weekends. It was all day Friday, all day Saturday. And, everybody in the class was kind of where you were in their career. So they were very motivated. And they were in all different industries, so you learned so much about so many industries from all your classmates, which I loved. Professors were amazing, and it was able to say, we're learning about core competency, and then here we are moving into a building, and my dad's moving returnable containers into this. I'm like, this is not distribution. This needs to be a separate business. Let's call that a separate business. I'm going to start it. We're going to have it here. We're going to run it independently. So it was about really using those financial acumen and apply it, that I could do it at the same time. Mm-hmm. It was really important.
So, what is the single biggest thing you sort of took from that experience, I guess, besides, of course, your husband?
My husband,
right?
yeah. Right, Nate. I just think the well-roundedness and just taking the business, we started a business in grad school. We called it Costa Valor. We started a spa in Costa Rica, and doing a strategy. I did a strategy plan for my company, a 10-year strategy. So it was just taking the business concepts and applying them to the actual business and then monitoring them and changing them and altering them as the company grew. And they were just some real basic tools.
So you cracked the door on an issue I was sort of interested in probing a little bit. Your dad thought, in a male-dominated industry, your dad thought you needed some credibility. You could say you had an MBA. What are some other big challenges that you faced, I think, in that industry, being female?
Well, there's stigmas and stereotypes, of, well, your dad just gave you the business. It's like, it was a pretty big price tag to that gift. It wasn't a gift. So I took it very seriously. I didn't want to be thought of, oh, dad, she just works there because her dad owns it and her dad just gave her that business, So I think it actually motivated me to work harder and learn more and really differentiate. And I used the expertise in the area, as a way to do that. So, very early on, I was giving seminars on, elastomeric selection. And I was doing presentations within my customer base to their engineering teams. And they would bring me in if there were recalls or warranty issues as the seal expert. So it was just really proving to the industry that it was knowledge-based.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a business major with a Spanish minor, and I'm just wondering, with your Spanish minor, were you able to use it in the industry?
100%.
Awesome, okay.
Yes. All the time, por supuesto. So I had 75 employees, 60 of them were Hispanic, first of all. So I used my Spanish to my employees every day. I would train them in Spanish. Many of them, English was their second language, and they didn't have their citizenship, So by the time, after working with me for many, many years and having their families come on board with me, they would go back and get their citizenship. But to be able to speak to them in their language, even interviewing and even explaining benefit programs and having, whether it's Dia de los Muertos parties or whatever, it was being able to really relate to them. And also with even selling to Trelleborg, having such a global footprint. That was very beneficial as well. And a lot of my supply base was also in Mexico. So when I would go down to Mexico, I could speak to my suppliers in their language, and then we also had our customers that also had plants in Mexico. So absolutely, use it a lot.
Yeah, thank you. That's super encouraging and awesome.
So, Mita? Yeah, you got the professor voice. Go ahead.
So sort of like, what TJ asked, building off that question, I'm just curious to know a little bit more about, given that women in, you face that you got the company from your dad, so that kind of a stigma, but also women in leadership positions, although the gap is maybe reducing, we still know there's a gap, right? But I'm also curious to know that if you face that kind of a stigma differently across different cultures, or by you just talked about interacting with your Hispanic employees or other countries, did you see it was like facing it culturally, which I'm guessing it is different, but if you can talk about that.
It was different. When I would go to China, the first time I went to China was with my dad, and it was very different, even though I was the vice president at the time and I was looking to take over the business. They would never approach me as the one that was a decision maker, and that was true for other countries that I would go to as well. But to see how times have changed from 1990 to now, even when Trelleborg, purchased Anderson Seal, I was the first women business that they purchased. And the first president that they had of the Americas was a woman, and the director of strategic initiatives was a woman. So here are these 6 people from Sweden, and the 3 people that were key in the transaction were women for the first time. And I remember my woman boss, and I hadn't had a boss in 25 years, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Who is this woman? I didn't know that she's brand new. She just started a week ago. I was dealing with the Swedish guy, and I remember her saying, "Do you feel a little uncomfortable, Peter?" Because it was the first time that the whole boardroom was with women, So I had seen a lot of change over the years, but in general, not a lot of women just in this industry, in the manufacturing, especially for our product line.
What do you think? What do you think the industry has the industry done anything to change that? over the years? Or do you think it's changing slowly, or?
Changing slowly. I mean, there's more, typically engineers in most manufacturers are men. You know, there are more women engineers, but most of my customers, I'm dealing with engineering degrees and technical engineering, and most of them would be males. You know, there are more women, but it's still, I would say, probably an 80-20 split.
Mm-hmm. Derek?
So I know you worked heavily in the sales area. Do you have a certain process you think worked best, or any advice in that process that you would recommend?
I love sales. I do think it has to be a genuine win-win for sales, and I really think that if you can find out, you just need to know what the other person wants. What is the goal of the person that you're selling? Is it price? Is it quality? Is it lead time? Is it that they need a WBE supplier on board? Where's the motive of the buyer? And I think at the end of the day, if you can understand what the purchaser wants, and you can deliver what they want, and you can ask them, if I give you this, this, and this, will I get the business? So what's the deal? Well, why don't I have the business? Is my price too high? Okay, if I can reduce my price by 20%, will I get the business? And then coming through on that. So identifying very early on what the critical issue is that's preventing you from getting the business. And, which is I should have said first, you have to have relationships. These are relationships that you make, and not just with your customers, but with your employees and your suppliers, because it's a team. Without your suppliers giving you a favor and helping you with the part that was on back order, and without the people turning it around when they got it in the door, you can't deliver it to your customer. So it's supply chain relationships up and down the supply chain, internal relationships, and long-term customer relationships that are really built on trust. I'm not just going to say I'm going to do it because I want the business. I'm going to say I'm going to do it, and you're going to look good, and it's going to be every time.
Piggybacking off of that, you mentioned that at a couple points that you decided to leave some longtime folks. The Harley examples where you said it's no longer a win-win. I think that's hard to imagine, particularly as a student, thinking like, oh gosh, you've got this great partnership, what we in marketing call 50-year marriage sort of thing, and you're saying like, I don't think so. What sort of kind of crucial decisions got you to that point? And it sounded like they were good decisions, and so sometimes I think it's hard to understand how a separation like that could be a good thing. So if you could talk a little bit more
That's
about...
Such a good question. Thank you. They are really hard decisions. What the heck are you thinking, right? You're gonna not move forward. To me, I don't think numbers lie. And I always look at the numbers. And if it doesn't make business sense, if it doesn't make sense financially to carry on something, so if you're not going to make money, or if you're not going to make the amount of money that you need to make in order to pursue something, then you can't do it. Not every single part, but every single strategic direction. You cannot enter into, in my opinion, a long-term, sustainable, viable strategic choice if you're not going to make money. And that was very easy for me, and that doesn't mean we're going to lose the relationship, because I've exited 20-year relationships on 2 separate occasions with 2 different business segments that were millions and millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, it doesn't harm our relationship because I can approach it with honesty and with making sure that they weren't going to be in the lurch. I'm going to help you through this. This isn't going to work. Let's figure out who else can do this, and then I will get them on board, and we'll make sure that there's no downtime for you.
So I'd like to ask the question, is there something you wish you had done as an undergraduate, either a course or an experience, that you recognize now, not that you recognize right away?
I might have taken like a business elective or something.
Thank you.
But I
She just said that to someone who's a 25-year psychology professor, so keep that in mind.
No, I value my psychology that I had here at UWL, seriously. But no, I think looking back, I value you guys don't have TAs here, and I don't know if you appreciate how fortunate you are, because I look back at my education here, and the teachers knew who you were, and they were your professors, and they cared about you. And I mean, I remember being late to my social psych exam in a total panic. I really did oversleep, and I was running, and I was totally late, and Dr. Anderson was like, "Don't worry about it, take a walk around the block, come back in 15 minutes and take the exam." And I was like, "Thanks." But it was that type of thing that it made a difference. But no, other than maybe taking one or so just feeler out there, instead of maybe dance a preach or something, no regrets.
So you've been in the business world for 25 plus years, and how have you seen it change from when you started to when you left in 2019? And then what do you anticipate will change in the next 25 years?
My timing was really good. I got out when I did. I'll be honest. I have never seen a supply chain. Typically in business, you've got at least one major stress going on all the time. Whether that's the longshoremen striking and you can't get product off of a boat, whether that's inflation, whether that's labor. I mean, typically there's one thing that all businesses are dealing with, But I have never seen in my career where it's so many things. It's labor, it's price increases, it's lead times, it's raw material shortages, it's everything. So I think right now is a great time to be looking for a job. I think this is a really good time to be a student because it is not the world of the employer right now. It is the world of the employee. And if you can get out there and if you can find what you want to do, and if you don't find it the first time, look again because it is a great time to be looking for what you want to contribute.
Along those lines, you talked about culture at your company and how you tried to build culture. And these students are going to be looking for a cultural fit in terms of, and they're in the driver's seat, as you just described. Like, what are some things that they should look for? What are things do you think that would make for a great place for them to work? What are the key things for them to
I would always
about?
ask for a tour. I would always ask for a tour. If you're going to go look for a job, I love tours, plant tours, and I want to check out the other people that are working there. I want to see if they're sitting around talking. I want to see if they like each other. I want to see if they say anything when the boss walks by about the boss. You can learn a lot because you know a lot about the other people that are working there. And if you have an opportunity to talk to other people that work there, I would do that as well. How long have you been here? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Because it's your interview to have as well.
Yeah, excellent advice.
Okay, so when you're looking at a potential acquisition of another building or a potential sale or a partnership with another company, what's the biggest part of the financial projections that stands out to you that says that this is going to work or it's not going to work?
Yeah, good one. So when I sold to Trelleborg, I had been approached before. So it wasn't the first time I was approached. And I wasn't actively looking. I didn't have a broker looking on my behalf to sell. But I always said if three things come together, I will move. It has to be the right time in my business, meaning my sales are probably at the highest I can take my sales. My business needs to be at a high. The economy needs to be ripe. It needs to be a really good time to sell, which meaning the multiplier of my EBIT has to be at an all-time high. And whoever's going to offer me the sale has to give me what I know the company is worth. So I had the company evaluated. I knew what it was worth. I also knew what my personal financial situation was and what my number was that I would need to retire. And I knew that what the economy was, it was the time to sell. And all three of them came together at the perfect time. So I knew it was time to go.
I have a quick question. You talked about making strategic choices, and sometimes you have to say goodbye to some business. How did you handle that with your employees? I mean, it's one thing to be the executive and looking at the numbers and saying, okay, this makes sense, but then going back and I'm guessing that it impacted some of your employees.
What's cool is my employees. I mean, they're so loyal, and my GM of ARM back in the day still works for me at P&A today. For the other, I only had 10 employees at ARM. 3 of them are still with me today because they worked with me through other areas of the business and are now in management roles for me today at packaging. The other 4, I actually gave jobs at the company that took the business after I let it go, so I got them jobs there. So, and one was a truck driver, and he's fine. He has a CDL, and he's off and running. But no, I even when I closed CKD, I kept all of those managers as well. Now, through COVID, we did have to do, we had a 3-week layoff because of COVID, and then we had to rehire 25 people, all in a matter of about a month or so. And we made sure that with the benefits that the government was giving when they came back, that everything was taken care of. But that was 20 people that we had to let go because that business was closed down.
What are some of the attributes that you'd like to see in students, for instance, if they were interviewing for a position? And also along those lines, what could students do to increase their marketability or attractiveness to employers?
Know what you're interviewing for. I'm always amazed if I would interview people and they don't even know like anything about the company. Especially like when I was little, we didn't even have like websites or an opportunity to look up history of a company. So do your homework, and I think that's kind of a given. Do your homework about where you're interviewing so you know about the company, so you know about the position. I've also had employees, potential candidates, show up 10 to 15 minutes late to an interview, and I won't even interview them. I mean, if you're not going to even show up on time for an interview, that doesn't show the respect that I would be looking for as someone that wants to take a job seriously. So I think it's basic respect and doing your own homework. I think is if you want the job, that's what I would be doing.
So you talked about the next 50 years, sort of giving back and turning to that philanthropy, an idea of giving back. Where does that come from? Sort of where did you learn that? What motivates you in that space?
I think that's kind of full circle. I participated on a lot of boards over the years, and I've done a lot of financial time and financial contributions, and I think it's just very rewarding. And I think that it pays itself back in spades. I have clients right now in my consulting business that are selling their own businesses, and going through that process with them, I can remember that emotion of what it's like to sell your business, and being a coach for someone that can walk through that process with them, it really feels good. Mm-hmm. It really feels good because I didn't have that, and I just think it's so awesome to be able to just call somebody at any time and be like, is that normal? What should I be doing next? Does that sound right? Because it's a huge decision, and it's the rest of your family's life is made on this decision. So to be able to be kind of a sounding board is really rewarding.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting the way you described like not having colleagues until you sold the business, right? So like at your level, you didn't have colleagues, and I imagine that's kind of lonely living at that level, and so being able to sort of be there to support somebody else is probably very rewarding. There's any last questions?
Anybody else? The question I always like to ask people that have taken a journey that was maybe different from what they set out to when they were leaving college, and that's probably true for almost everybody in the room, what advice would you give to the current students that you wish somebody would have told you when you were, well, not sitting in these exact seats, but maybe sitting in seats across campus?
I think even when it came to taking classes in college, I was an education major. I wasn't even a psych major, and then I didn't even pursue psych. So for me, it was just about continuing to follow what you enjoyed, and I took psych because I really loved all the classes I was taking, so I just kept taking them, I took Spanish just because I loved Spanish, And in business, I just kept following what I loved to do in business, and it was very different and very varied. But I really think that you're good at what you love. It's not ironic. So if you just figure out what you really like to do, you're probably really good at it. So just keep doing it.
All right. With that, thank you. Perfect ending.